Welcome back to the Architect Fitness YouTube channel. My name is Tony. I'm sorry if I haven't put out a video in a while. I've been a little busy moving into a new home, which you can probably see behind me. But hopefully this means more videos and better videos coming soon, because now I have a little bit more space to work with. Now we're getting back to our nutrition video series, and in this video we're talking all about fiber. But before we get into that, you might be wondering, why does a fitness channel and a gym spend so much time talking about nutrition? And that's because nutrition is extremely important when it comes to making changes in your body. Most people think that they can out-exercise their bad nutrition habits, but that's simply not the case. And now, if you're sedentary and you don't eat well and you begin to exercise, you certainly will see some initial changes in your physique and your health. But those changes will quickly drop off if you don't also change your nutritional habits. Now, when you come to the gym, you might be there for an hour, 3 to 4 days a week. But there's 168 hours in a week. So that's a small percentage of your total time dedicated to fitness. And the truth is, what you choose to do those other hours outside of the gym have a much bigger impact. And that's where nutrition comes into play. So if you haven't watched any of our videos on nutrition yet, I suggest you go back and watch those. But today we're going to talk about fiber. And fiber is really important, but often not talked about when it comes to nutrition. Fiber isn't really that sexy. It's associated with some kind of disgusting body functions, but it is very important nonetheless. So let's talk about why fiber is important, and then we're going to talk about the foods that I like to get my fiber from. Fiber helps to regulate blood sugar. It can help stop with cravings, so it can make you feel more satisfied for longer so you don't get hungry and then binge. It's also really good for binding to excess hormones and helping your body secrete them. But one thing that fiber doesn't really do, that people think that it does, is nullify carbs. It's true that sometimes if you eat carbohydrates with fiber, your body cannot absorb that carbohydrate. But the ratio at which that happens isn't exactly clear. So what some companies will sometimes do when they're selling a food product is show you the net carbs, which is basically the total carbohydrate less the amount of fiber. And they say, oh, well, if this product has 30 carbs and 10 grams of fiber, then it really only has 20 carbs in it. It's not really how it works. That brings us to the next question. How much fiber should you be eating? We recommend that women shoot for a target of 20 grams per day and men shoot for a target of 25. Why the difference between men and women? Because women tend to have less calories allotted to them overall, and eating a lot of fiber can be difficult if your carbs are on the lower end, since you cannot get fiber without carbohydrates. Just a really quick point about that, a lot of the things that people tout that a low carb or ketogenic diet will do for you, a high fiber diet will also do for you. Now let's get into some of my favorite sources of fiber. First up is berries. I eat berries, particularly raspberries and blackberries, almost every single day. A serving of 100 grams will have 7 to 10 grams of fiber in it. That's a lot. Most foods are going to have 1 to 2 grams per serving. So berries are a great way to get in a lot of fiber without having to give up a lot of carbohydrates also, since a single 100 gram serving of these berries probably doesn't have more than 15 carbohydrates in it. I start my breakfast every day with a side of berries to get off to a good start with my fiber intake. Next up are these Mission Fiber Wraps. Now, all the fiber sources in these wraps are natural. There's no fiber supplementation cooked into them. And these have a tremendous amount of fiber in them, totaling 23 grams. So just one of these tortillas will give you pretty much your entire day's worth of fiber. With that said, they do have 31 grams of carbohydrates in them. So depending on how many carb macros you get, this might not be a great option for your macro budget. But I usually make a chicken quesadilla with one of these if I'm behind on fiber. They taste pretty good, but what's really interesting about this is if you look at the front of the package, 8 grams of net carbs. So what they've done is they've taken that 31 total grams of carbs and they've subtracted the 23 grams of fiber. Don't fall for that. It's just BS marketing. Track the entire carbohydrate macros. Another great source of fiber that I find myself going to is POW pasta, and this pasta is made from green lentils. So that's where the fiber comes from. If you were to eat lentils by themselves, it would also be a great source of fiber. However, I find when freshly cooked, this pasta does have a true pasta texture to it, even though it's made from lentils. With that said, it does not reheat well. But let's look at the macros on this. So a 2-ounce serving has 35 grams of carbs. So again, you're gonna have to have some carbs in your budget to fit this in. This also has 14 grams of protein, which is awesome, but this isn't about protein, this is about fiber, and 7 grams of fiber. So as you can see, another big chunk towards your fiber could come from these lentils. But keep in mind, this pasta has about the same amount of fiber as these berries, and these berries have about half the carbohydrates. So if you're trying to save your carbs for something later in the day, the berries might be a better choice for you. Another one of my top fiber choices are Asian pears. Now this pear's probably got somewhere between 12 to 15 carbs in it, and anywhere from 4 to 6 grams of fiber. It depends on the size of the pear. So again, a really good bang for the buck when it comes to fiber to carb ratio. Pears are really delicious and very sweet as well. So I tend to eat these quite a bit. Now let's talk about some other high fiber foods, some of which I don't usually eat, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. It's all to your personal taste. The first food I want to talk about is an avocado. They didn't have any at the store, so I don't have one here, so you're going to have to imagine what they look like. Anyway, a single avocado can have anywhere between 12 to 15 grams of fiber in it. The only problem is it can also have about 25 to 30 grams of fat. So even though an avocado is technically a fruit, they are very high in fat. Some people think they're delicious. I don't personally care for them, but if you do enjoy it, it is a great source of fiber. And that might be a good option for people that are doing a ketogenic diet or lower carb diet and want to still hit their fiber for the day. An avocado is a good way to do that, since ketogenic diets are typically very high in fat, so you'll probably have a higher fat budget for the day. Other great sources of fiber are things, as we mentioned before, like lentils and beans. Some foods that you think might be high in fiber aren't overwhelmingly so. For example, baby spinach, broccoli, and other green vegetables do have some fiber in them, but not an overwhelming amount. I don't want to discourage you from eating them, since they're usually very filling and calorie sparse, but also packed with lots of vitamins. They just don't have as much fiber as you might think that they would. With that said, if you're eating a lot of vegetables, particularly vegetables with every meal or main course, you're probably going to get in a decent amount of fiber anyway, as most servings have 1 to 3 grams in them. The list of high fiber foods is much, much longer than what I've covered today. This is just a brief introduction. And I cannot stress this enough, and I know I talk about it in almost every single video, but the real power of tracking your food and tracking your macros is learning about what is in your food and taking personal control over your diet and your results. And the only way you're going to learn what's in your food and learn what you like and what's going to also fit your macros is by tracking. So I encourage you to go out there and track your macros, but also start paying attention to your fiber. And before we wrap this up, let's talk a little bit about fiber for fat loss. Now, if you're losing fat or trying to lose fat, you should be in a calorie deficit. And if you're in a calorie deficit, you're probably going to feel hungry because you're eating less food than you're used to. So it's really important to get your fiber in. If even a little bit, it will help you reduce your cravings. That can be a big win. Because when it comes to changing your body, changing your physique, or improving your performance, it's rarely that we don't know what to do. It's that we have a hard time executing it. It's the self-control and the willpower part that makes it very difficult. So setting yourself up for success by eating foods that might help reduce those cravings can go a long way to you losing body fat. And as I mentioned before, there's a whole host of other health benefits to eating fiber, so I highly recommend it. I can say personally that eating fiber and increasing my fiber and paying attention to how much fiber I was getting was kind of the big difference for me when I started to lose weight. I had lost maybe 10 to 15 pounds without really paying attention to fiber, and my results somewhat stalled out. From there, I looked at what I could do better, and I realized that I wasn't really tracking fiber, and when I looked back at how much fiber I'd been eating, it wasn't that much. When I made a conscious effort to start increasing my fiber intake, that's when the results started to take off again. So that's just my personal experience, but there's plenty of science to back up why you should be eating a high fiber diet. Lastly, let's talk about fiber supplements and is there such a thing as too much fiber? There's nothing inherently wrong with taking a fiber supplement, but keep in mind you can't get fiber without carbs. So if you look at the carb content on most fiber supplements, it's a little bit high. And I'd rather eat and enjoy a real food to get my fiber than give up some of my carb macros to get a supplement in. But if you're having a hard time hitting your fiber without supplementation, you're probably better off taking a supplement rather than not hitting your fiber. And is there such a thing as too much fiber? Definitely. There's too much of anything. You can have too much water, too much oxygen. It's always about balance. But how much fiber is too much fiber? For women, probably anything more than 35 grams, and for men, probably anything more than 45 grams. But when you look at how much fiber is in most foods, even really nutritious whole foods, it's very difficult to eat that much fiber, especially if you're in a calorie deficit and tracking your macros. So I probably wouldn't worry about it. So what are some of your favorite high fiber foods? Did I miss anything that's really important? Did I miss anything that's really tasty and helps you get your fiber in? Post in the comments below. I'm always looking for new additions to my diet for myself and of course for things to pass on to my clients. I don't care if it's a supplement or a food with added fiber. I want to know about it, so let me know in the comments and I'll see you guys in the next video.